bike is so much fun, dude. Today I'm going to be comparing two bikes that are so wildly different and tell you the 5 biggest differences between them. Let's cue the intro. Now, if this is your first time here, I'd like to welcome you. My name is Howard. Welcome to the Headshot Rides channel, where we do comparisons like this, individual motorcycle reviews. We do part reviews as far as the difference between aftermarket bars, stock bars, all that kind of stuff. Everything motorcycle related in one channel. So if you like what I do, consider subscribing, man. Hit your notifications so you never miss a video from me. As you see, today we have the Challenger and the Chief Bobber. And really, I want to treat it as like a Softail and touring comparison. They don't call the Chief Bobber a Softail, but you get the idea. I want to tell you the biggest differences between these bikes, and then that way you can make an informed decision for yourself. Which one would suit your needs better? And that's really what it's all about. Now, I have the opportunity to tell you what I like, what I don't like, and the biggest differences between these two motorcycles. That's all thanks to American Biker here in Latson, South Carolina. So if you need a new Indian Chief Bobber or a new Challenger or one of their many used bikes, come talk to Rob at American Biker. Big thanks to these guys for letting me come out and give you my honest opinion and show you the differences on these two bikes. So let's talk about the very first biggest difference you're going to find between these two bikes is the fairing, or the lack thereof. Now, you got to keep in mind, obviously these bikes are wildly different. And so as we go through these differences, I'll tell you which one I like the best and why. And I'll tell you who I think these bikes are best for. But really it depends on what you want to do with the motorcycle. So I just want to get that out of the way. But the fairing is one of the biggest differences here, right? Not only does the fairing have a windshield, you have the 7-inch screen, you have navigation, you also have speakers, you also get the protection from the wind, rain, things like that, right? So it's going to add on more weight, but it also has a lot of beneficial features if that's something you're doing. If you're doing long distance touring, you want all that stuff, right? More creature comforts. But there's a huge section of motorcycle riders that want simplicity, right? Maybe they are bike night people, local rides. Maybe they like to do charity events. Maybe they like to commute on their bike more than anything. Or maybe you do like to do touring and you can get a windshield for this. Regardless, even with a windshield on this bike, it still is super simple. Now, I do want to say that some of the Chiefs, you can get the upgraded 4-inch ride command, right, which is going to give you a lot of the information that you get out of here, but still speakers, you know, adjustable windshield, things like that, you're not going to get on this motorcycle. Also, that changes the aesthetics wildly of the two bikes, right? You have a single headlight, you have your bullet style turn signals. On the Challenger, you have the turn signals which are running lights as well on either side of the single headlight. So you're obviously going to get better lighting with that fairing as well. Even if you put a windshield on here, you're still going to be lacking a lot of those things. But to some people, this is a much better looking motorcycle. It's more of a traditional bike, and there's nothing wrong with that at all, especially if you're just doing like in-town stuff. Just remember, if you're going to take this on a long distance touring trip, a windshield is something you're going to want, because all of that wind in your chest will definitely fatigue you quicker than what this bike will. Now, that leads me into my next thing that I want to talk about, which is technology. They both have ABS, they both have ride modes, so that's pretty cool. You can adjust how this throttle is going to respond to you depending on the situation that you're in, but that's where the technology stops with the Chief Bobber. Now, I say that loosely. There's obviously a lot more that goes into these bikes, but as far as like traction control, the Bosch IMU, the cornering with ABS control, the traction control, all of that kind of stuff that you're going to get in this motorcycle right here is a lot more. But it's also a lot more stuff that can go wrong on you. It's a lot more stuff that can break on you. But if you're looking for a lot of those safety things that are built into the bike, you're obviously going to get that here. And a lot of that information you can read right here from the screen. Plus, you have your analog gauges up top, so you kind of get the best of both worlds there. Now, obviously, another huge aesthetic difference to these bikes is the fact that you get hard bags with the Challenger, okay? Also with the Chieftain. We could throw the Chieftain in here as well, right? But with these bags, you're gonna get storage. No surprise there, right? And so while you can add bags to the Chief, traditionally you're gonna put something more of a leather bag on there, like the Super Chief Limited, which I think is an awesome looking bike. And I like the leather bags on that bike personally too. I just like that whole setup. With these, obviously they're hard locking. You have a remote and you have a button here that you can use to lock those bags. So if security is an important factor to you, this is the only way to go as far as having hard lockable bags. I carry a lot of camera equipment with me in my bags. I have to have hard locking bags. That's a necessity for me, right? And so that also changes the aesthetics of the back of the bikes, where again, more simplified, chopped fairing there, has that bobber look to it, right? And it looks good aesthetically. You get to see more of that tire. You barely see any rubber on the back of this bike, right? And the whole aesthetics, from the fenders to the lights to the bags, everything is different back here. One of the biggest things that you'll notice between the two bikes is the riding position. And I found out the hard way that even the Challenger and the Road Glide, although they are comfortable, both of these bikes I think would benefit from a set of handlebars. The KST specifically, I like them because you can adjust them not only this way, but you can pull them in, right? But regardless, just factory bars. This is a very upright, natural seating position. My arms aren't completely stretched out, right? They would be more like, you know, here if they were completely stretched out. My arms are relaxing a little bit, and I just feel very comfortable in the saddle, okay? My butt is tucked into the seat, a little bit of support for my lower back. Now I'm gonna sound like an old man here. Now say what you want, whatever. But this to me is a superior seating position. And really it's one of the best seating positions on any of the touring bikes that I've ever ridden. The bars come right back to you, right? They're swept back. I'm not a huge fan of the aesthetics of these bars, right? I think they're a little awkward looking, but just factory bars for factory bars, seating position to seating position, this one feels way more comfortable to me. My feet are out in front of me. I got a big floorboard there that, you know, I can rest on and kind of move my feet on in multiple positions. This feels super natural. Now, for some reason, Indian doesn't put heel shifters on. It has nothing to really do with, you know, seating position, but I would like a heel shifter on this one as well. That would complete the comfort and the seating position. And that leads me to the seating position on this bobber. Now you have this riser right here. My arms are basically stretched out, and my back is like, I don't know, slightly, not really arched at all. So this is definitely more comfortable, and I'll use this example again, than like the Lowrider ST, okay? Because that one has mid controls. So if you're looking at one of these bikes, in my opinion, it's one of the more comfortable mid-frame bikes, right under 700 pounds. And one of the biggest benefits of this is the forward controls. Having your feet out in front of you, it's awesome, dude. So, you know, this is just so much more simple. And I think 50-55 miles an hour, these bikes are a lot of fun to ride, man. This seating position won't bug me if I'm literally just going around town or going on a short charity ride or a bike night or whatever, you know what I mean? Like everything we just talked about. But there's no way I'd want to be in the saddle for a long distance road trip. I would have to have a windshield on this thing minimum, and obviously, like I talked about on the Challenger, change the bars out too. But the stock seating position is okay. The seat is a lot more firm. The seat is a lot more firm than the plushness of that Challenger. Next thing we want to talk about is comfort. While I think the aesthetics of this seat on the Bobber look better, the Challenger is obviously going to give you a more plush seat. Your passenger isn't going to be as quick to actually leave you if you're on that bike compared to this one, right? If you're riding with your lady and she sits on this thing for more than 75 miles, she'll probably find a bagger bro to marry instead of you because that seat is so much more comfortable. So you want to keep that in mind. If you want to keep your relationship intact, the Challenger might be a better option for you. It is definitely more comfortable. And you have some more options, you know, with that setup right there. You could go with the Tour Pack if you wanted to get some additional comfort and some additional storage. Now, one thing you could do with this bike if you want additional storage is you can add a luggage rack, and that'll allow you to put a bag on top. So there are some things you can do with this. And obviously most people are going to upgrade their seat anyways, but straight from the factory, aesthetics I like better on the Chief Bobber. But as far as which one my ass would rather go in, it's going to be the one on the Challenger all day, every day. Plus you have more of a built-in backrest on the Challenger there. Even though it's a big motorcycle, one of the best parts about this bike is the engine. The 108 Power Plus, although smaller than the Thunderstroke, this one's liquid cooled. So you have a more modern engine there. It's going to run cooler and it's going to give you a lot more power. So you're at 128 foot-pounds of torque and 122 horsepower in this bike. And even though it's much heavier, it still ain't no slouch. It will get up to speed very quickly, and then you have the benefit, of course, of throwing it into sport mode, and that's going to waken that throttle up even more. You know, and then if you want to do low speed maneuvering, right, and you know, you don't want to change the bars, obviously, you know, it's very easy to turn this bike. Even with that big fairing up front, it's still stationary, right? Your bars are separate from that, so even though it weighs more, you still have a fairly lightweight feeling motorcycle relative to your other touring machines. That's one thing I love that Indian does, is because the way they engineer these things, although it is a heavier bike, it feels a lot lighter than what it is. From getting it off the kickstand to just right here on the road, it almost feels like a Softail. It's really impressive. Hey, we're coming up on a curve, one of the very few curves we have here in the Low Country. Oh man, woo, corner carving, baby. Yeah, that takes skill to get around that one. Yeah, I'm definitely a fan of this color, dude. These loud colors on motorcycles just look so good. And this thing is loud. I went to go do the heel shifter. Forgot I don't have one. I don't know, man. To me, it's like the best of both worlds. You know, you get a bike with an engine that gives you more power. This thing will move. I mean, you know, unless you're a true speed demon and, you know, it's just like, it just ain't enough for you when it comes to stock touring bikes. Right now, this motor is the cream of the crop. Super smooth, man. Rear cylinder deactivation. You know, this is even a bike if you're doing commuting with less heat. You're gonna feel some heat off the engine, but with less heat, because it's liquid cooled, to me it just makes sense. You know, now that stock sound of a Challenger I'm not a huge fan of. I gotta be honest there. This thing needs some exhaust bad. One thing I would like to point out is how quick the cylinder deactivation kicks on. Check this out. It's so instantaneous. Let the throttle out, it's off. This thing, that's what this is built for. Going quick. It's got the 111 Thunderstroke. Now riding these two bikes back to back, it's kind of hard for me to tell the difference. This one's got like 108 foot-pounds of torque. And because it's air-cooled, it's probably, I don't know, 95 horsepower, if you're lucky. So I could just imagine what the 108 Power Plus would be in this bike right here. By the way, can we take a minute to appreciate how beautiful this paint is, man? Especially when the sun hits it, you see those flakes. The metallic, it looks so good. Obviously a lot simpler instrumentation here. It's just a more simple motorcycle all the way around, you know what I mean? Now you notice how that car pulled out in front of me. One thing I want to mention is that with the additional lighting of the touring bikes, even just the two additional lights on either side of the Cyclops, makes all the difference, dude, of being seen. This is just an easy cruiser, man. There's several changes, several mods I would have to make to this. Handlebars probably being numero uno. But if you just want a little round town ripper, this is the way to go. Now, if you go with the upgraded Chief Bobber, that comes with the 116, which is obviously going to give you some more power there, like the Super Chief Limited. And one thing I can say about the engines is that Power Plus is so smooth, you barely get any vibration. I mean, in the engine and your feet, anything like that. It's just, it's almost like comparing an M8 to a twin cam. That's kind of the way I see it between the Thunderstroke and the Power Plus. Now, in all fairness, although the seating position is not my favorite, I think it's just because of these bars, honestly, because I feel firmly planted in the seat. I really do. I actually feel very comfortable in the seat. But I know how much this thing would hurt, you know, after a decent amount of time in the saddle. Ideally, to have a Challenger and then have a Chief Bobber, you know, in your in the same garage, you know, that's the goal, right? A couple of dirt bikes. You know, I don't want to get too greedy here. I'm just, you know, life goals on about 60 acres in Tennessee. Okay, I'll stop. You know, but regardless, oh yeah, and my own personal range setup. Okay, I stopped there. You can do everything with this bike that you can on a Challenger. Remember though, you got a 4-gallon tank compared to a 6. So if you're going to be doing touring, you know, you get a windshield, you get some bags, you know, you get a luggage rack, you add all these things, you're still not going to be able to go as far. The beauty of this bike is you can strip all that stuff off after your road trip and be able to have just a stripped down cruiser as well. Now, one thing that is so noticeable to me is also going over these bumps, dude. That Fox monoshock does a superior job to this as far as absorbing that recoil. But in my opinion, these bobbers, the Chief Bobber specifically, is more comfortable than the Scout series. You got a little bit more weight, it hugs the road a little bit better. I don't know, I prefer this setup over the Scouts. Not that that's what we're talking about today, but this is an awesome and very capable motorcycle. And so I don't want people to get the wrong idea that I think these bikes are just bad, because they're not. They're anything but. I appreciate that both bikes too, by the way, have LEDs all the way around. That clutch engages all the way out though. It's much better on the Challenger. Right, so just got done riding these two bikes, and so here's my final thoughts on everything. It seems like it would be pretty obvious, but if you're going to be doing touring, if you're going to have a passenger, if you want the creature comforts, the amenities, the radio, the nav, the windscreen, all of those kinds of things, hard locking saddlebags, it's pretty much a no-brainer to me. You know, but again, I don't want to discount the people that really like the simplicity of this bike right here. So like I mentioned before, ideally to have both, well, in a perfect world, yeah. So we talked about the 5 biggest differences. I like baggers, right? Even if I'm not doing touring, I like all of the features that come on these bikes. The smoothness, the radio, the windshield, the fairing, the wind protection, the hard saddlebags, the technology that goes into these bikes, I'm just a huge fan of. So if I'm only gonna have one bike, it's gotta be something like this. This right here is like the perfect around town bike and everything that we just talked about. So those are the biggest differences between the two. Love to hear the thoughts from the community here, man. Which one do you like the best and why? What was some of the driving decisions for you when you went to go buy either a Challenger or any of the various Model Chiefs? So love to hear those things down below. Big thanks to you guys. If you want to support what I do further and you like what I do, well, you can come join the awesome community over on Patreon. I'll leave a link to that down below. Big thanks again. See you in the next one. And as always, hold 'em down.